So, after 4 years of waiting and countless qualifiers, the World Cup has finally come back. And so, I will be your humble guide at this tournament, which from the start adopted one of its host nation's cultures. The bigger, the better. With 48 teams now competing for the grand prize in front of billions of people, it was sure to be incredible. If you don't count the multiple situations that surrounded the US even before a ball was kicked. But alas, we are not here for that. We are here for stories, goals, and drama on the pitch. So, sit back and enjoy the story of the group stages, narrated by yours truly. Now, before we begin, I have to set some ground rules for this video. It will probably be split into two parts due to the sheer number of games. Also, I will talk about each group one by one in alphabetical order. Is this the best way narratively? Probably not, but it's the way that lets my brain track things more easily. Regardless about that, just as a special alien rock once said, it's time go. And we'll start with Group A, which consisted of the following teams: Czechia, Mexico, South Korea, and South Africa, with the first match being played at Estadio Azteca in Mexico, where they took on South Africa, which was the rematch of the 2010 World Cup first round. Unfortunately for the Africans, they couldn't recreate the wonders from that time, as the mistake at the back cost them a goal with Julian Quinones. I apologize for the pronunciations. Scored in under 10 minutes to give Mexico the advantage. In the second half, the Africans would look for a response, which was them getting a red card for a player who lived up to his name. Yikes. Now down to 10 men. Mexico ran wild as the Mexican sensation Raul Jimenez scored to make it 2-0 for the Mexicans. Fun fact about this fella, by the way, he dedicated his first World Cup goal at the age of 35 to his late father, and he also scored with a part of his body he fractured 6 years ago after fighting so much to come back to play again. Enough about my Raul and Wolves bias. The fun was not over, as in the 87th minute, South Africa dug even deeper in their misery by getting down to 9 men, which wasn't the last red card of the match, as Mexico joined in with a red card in the 92nd minute. In conclusion, more red cards than half of the last World Cup. Great start. Later that day, or night, depending where you're from, South Korea and Czechia played, and after almost 60 minutes, the Czechs would break the tie with a header from defender Ladislav Krejci. Another Wolves player, huh? Whatever. The Koreans wouldn't have it and found an equalizer less than 10 minutes after, with a beautiful strike. And during the contest, they score again to go 2-1 up in the 80th minute. Speaking of Czechia's journey, that would continue for now as they face South Africa, with both teams trying to keep their hope alive and at the end showed a point in an 1-all draw. Mexico versus South Korea was up next, threatening to put an end to the bond between the two fan bases as Luis Romo would score the only goal of the game to guarantee qualification for the Mexicans, and the South Koreans went right back to bonding with the Mexicans. You love to see it. Moving on, Czechia again would take on Mexico now, and they would need a result if they wanted to qualify. Yeah, they got better 3-0. And so they're packing their bags and going home. Next up, the last match, the Koreans would go up against South Africa. And just like Czechia, they needed a good result to make their chances for qualifications believable. Yeah, they lost 1-0. And so they will have to wait for their fate in the third spot to see if they are going to go through. While South Africa would qualify to the knockout automatically, for the first time in their history. The second group would consist of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Canada, Qatar, and Switzerland. The second host nation, Canada, would start their campaign against Bosnia and suffer a fairly early blow in the 21st minute by a Jovo Lukic header as the Bosnians erupted in cheers surrounded by their hit songs for the World Cup. Further down the line, however, Canada decided to show the world that they know how to score and equalize in the 78th minute, winning their first ever point at the World Cup. In the next game, Switzerland would repeat their mistakes from the start of falling asleep in the closing stages of a match, as Qatar would follow in the footsteps of Canada and score to equalize in the 94th minute. I can't talk much crap about the Swiss though, as they would follow up that draw with a 4 win over Bosnia, with the latter keeping up the good habit of getting red carded. Canada Qatar was another game with red cards, as after Canada put 3 past the Qatarians, Madiba put in a foul on Ismail Kone, which broke the Canadian leg. A dark moment in a good tournament for Canada. As for Madiba, he looked genuinely broken at the outcome and went to apologize to the team after the game and even visited Kone in the hospital to apologize personally as well. That game would end 6-0 in the favor of the Canadians. However, unfortunately, it was overshadowed by the outcome that neither team would have wanted. Keeping up with Canada, they would have to play Switzerland and try to fight back after going 2-0 down due to strikes from Mazambi and Vargas with a goal, but it was too little, too late, and Canada would fall to second place and could be knocked down even further if Bosnia beat Qatar by a high number of goals. It didn't happen, as that game ended 3-1 in the favor of the Bosnians, which meant they would finish in third place and have a better chance than Korea to go through as one of the third best placed teams, having 4 points. Group C consisted of Brazil, Haiti, Morocco, and Scotland. The first match was between Brazil and Morocco, a hyped up game due to Morocco's results from the last time at the World Cup. We won't talk about the African Cup of Nations. Anyway, Ismail Saibawi would open the scoring for Morocco with a beautiful dink over Alisson, but the Brazilian star boy, Vini Jr., would score 11 minutes later to tie the game. In the second half, both teams were held in a stalemate, and at the end they shared points. Haiti-Scotland followed, where Scotland would nudge in front with a John McGinn strike around the halfway mark. And that's how this would end. But it was still a decent game from Haiti's POV, who had the World Cup for the second time in their nation's history. Keeping up with Scotland, the same score they inflicted on Haiti would come back to bite them as they failed to score after Morocco went 1-0 up at the beginning of the match. Brazil cruised past Haiti in a 3-0 victory, with rumors that Neymar would be fit to return against Scotland for probably his last dance with the national team. Continuing the rapid-fire results, the same score for Brazil in the match I just mentioned against Scotland, which meant that they secured their spot in the round of 32. And yes, Neymar Jr. featured in the last 10 minutes plus injury time. A sweet moment for a guy so injury-prone. The last matchup would let Morocco go on equal point with Brazil, but not quite overtake them due to the head-to-head game, as the African nation would beat Haiti 4-2, and Scotland is in third, so we wait to see the third place ranking table for their fate. The fourth group would be made up of Australia, Paraguay, Turkey, and the third host country, the US. The latter would start off their campaign with a 4-1 beating of Paraguay, with goals from Reina, Balogun, and Bobadilla firing the US in front, prompting some US pundits to have questionable takes regarding the state's probability of winning the entire tournament. Australia would defeat dark horses Turkey, even if the Turks had no more than 30 shots. Keep this in mind for later. Keeping up with Australia, they would continue by getting the same side of the coin as the US in a 2-0 defeat, meaning that the Americans would guarantee a spot in the last 32. Paraguay would beat Turkey 1-0 despite being a man down and Turkey having, you guessed it, close to 30 shots again. And so the dark horses would crash out of the tournament in the group stages. And so we're taught a valuable lesson that even a team so hyped up with potential can fail miserably if they don't actually perform when it matters. But hey, at least they won against the US 3-2 in the last game. And Paraguay, Australia shared points. Boring! And so the US men national team and Australia went to the knockout stage as Paraguay looks very promising to qualify from the third spot. The penultimate group of this video was made up of Curaçao, the smallest country to ever play at a World Cup, Ecuador, Germany, and Ivory Coast. The Germans would probably feel very lucky to be in this group, and well, they didn't slack off as they trashed tiny Curaçao 7-1, definitely giving more than half of Brazil's flashbacks. However, in this match, Livano Comencia would write history as he would score an equalizer to draw the game at 1-all, a goal that sent the entire world into chills for the tiny state, and the joy lasted for like 17 minutes until Germany would score again. But alas, Curaçao has done it. They got their first World Cup goal. Soak it in, people of Curaçao. You deserve it. Moving on to Ivory Coast versus Ecuador, and with Ecuador being one of the best South American sides in terms of defense, it took a while for Ivory Coast to find an opening, but they did. Amad Diallo scoring in the 90th minute to get 3 points for his country. Germany would follow up next, beating the African side 2-1 despite suffering an early blow, getting 1-0 down. Deniz Undav would score a brace to book Germany's ticket to the round of 32. Meanwhile, Ecuador-Curaçao finished 0-0 as Eloy Room deployed a masterclass in goalkeeping, producing no fewer than 15 saves for his country, a remarkable performance for the tiny country of Curaçao. In the last games, however, two quick goals between Ecuador and Germany would put the score at 1-all before Gonzalo Plata would score in the 77th minute to give Ecuador the lead and the win, accumulating 4 points which put them in a great spot for the third place performance race. And Ivory Coast would win 2-0 against Curaçao, which put them second and, in turn, qualified for the knockouts. The last group of the video being made up of Japan, the Netherlands, Sweden, and Tunisia. The first game was between the Dutch and the Japanese, in which the Samurai Blue would rescue a point thanks to a Koichi Ogawa header that just barely deflected off the head of Kamada in true Blue Lock fashion. The next day, Sweden defeated Tunisia 5-1 and then got the same treatment from the Dutch. Meanwhile, Tunisia sacked their coach in an attempt to turn things around, which didn't work out that well as the Blue Lock Dream Team battered them 4-0 with the cleanest football and sent them home. So yeah, Tunisia was not having a great time. And so, both Japan and the Netherlands qualified to the round of 32 before the last games. Tunisia still continued for another 90 minutes as they lost 3-1 to the Netherlands, while Sweden and Japan shared a point, meaning that the latter went through from the second place and Sweden is still holding on for a third spot to qualify. And so we reached the end of today's episode. Overall, it was an amazing time since the World Cup started, and I hope I'll see you in the next episode as well. I want to thank you for watching and bearing with me as I am trying to talk and genuinely working on this video. It's a fun time with the ups and downs of it, and I genuinely can't thank you enough for actually watching. I'm sorry for making this video and bringing it quite late. I don't actually have a script for this last part. I am talking purely with whatever idea comes to mind, so this part will not be as highly edited as you may think. Even if it's a good time and I'm having a fun time working on this video, sometimes I'm a bit scared for posting things after the heat or the drama dies down. But if this works and if I see that you like it, even though I definitely bring this later than I should have, I'm going to continue. And don't be afraid of chasing your dreams, blah blah blah, yeah, whatever the hell. Again, thank you. I don't want to make this thing emotional. I just genuinely want to talk to you from a human being to a human being without having anything in front of me that I should read. So yeah, Thank you for watching, and I'll see you hopefully next time.